It's Halloween, so yes, I'm wearing a costume. So Halloween is around the corner, and if you're similar to me, you can't be bothered to go out to parties or go trick-or-treating even though you're clearly 20 years old with nothing better to do. Forget I said that. Anyway, you need a way to celebrate the holiday, and if it's not a marathon of horror movies, then it'll be a marathon of horror games. A sugar-fueled marathon of horror games until scared shitless. So today I'm going to go over my personal list of 5 horror games you should play on good old Hallows Eve. Now, these selections will consist of games that have come out this year with other stuff in between. It's also worth noting that games that are purely jump scare fests won't be on this list. In my honest opinion, those don't really qualify as horror games. Outlast 2, I'm looking at you. Without stalling any further, here's the list. At number 5 is Little Nightmares. I actually followed this game when it was initially announced and found it to be an interesting little horror game. Set in a combination of the creepy art style of Tim Burton and maybe American McGee's Alice comes this game. Set in the creepy depths of a strange setting, you play as a little girl named Six, who must escape from this place by any means. Going through horrific set pieces, you'll walk and platform your way through these areas, occasionally solving environmental puzzles. All while avoiding dangers that halt your progress, sometimes requiring stealth to get through. It may not be directly scary, but its grim areas and distinct monsters may leave a haunting after effect on your mind and in turn your dreams. I particularly like this style because of the lingering feeling it leaves, as mentioned earlier. It's like the devs woke up one day and said, we want to create a cutesy, frightening platformer, and got to work. At number 4, we have Perception. Much like Little Nightmares, I followed this game for a long time and found the premise and concept to be neat. Set in a creepy mansion, you play as Cassie, a blind woman venturing through these halls to uncover its secrets. But since she's blind, you'll have to use echolocation to get around, which will provide you with a visual to go on up to a small range. It's kind of like Daredevil senses from the early 2000s film if it were less stupid. This also creates an interesting dynamic for gameplay, as you're not alone. In these halls is a ghostly entity that'll kill you on sight, so you have to carefully move and sort of strategically use your senses in order to survive. It's an unorthodox approach to a horror game, but I like it. With number 3, I'm breaking the rules a little bit, but then again, it's my rule, so who cares? With an announcement of a dual port on Nintendo Switch for November 28th, it got me in the mood to play the original versions. So at number 3, it's Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2. Now, I'm a diehard fan of the Resident Evil franchise, and these spin-offs are no exception. Meant to fill in the gaps between specific RE games, these are self-contained stories intended to bring the games back to the survival horror roots the series is known for. Revelations 1 feels like RE4 on an isolated boat, while Revelations 2 feels like RE5 on an abandoned island. These games are like cult classics in my eyes, so I very much still enjoy playing them today. If you want simple B-horror movie games that deliver on action-packed survival gameplay with some actual scares and thrills, then give these a try. Number 2 is Resident Evil 7. Speaking of Resident Evil, how about the game that reinvented and brought new life to the main series? Now, I was initially skeptical of the change to first person, thinking it succumbed to the trends that plagues other FPS horror games. But after playing through the game twice, I highly recommend it. It's the whole package and I love it. But to the uninitiated, you play as Ethan Winters, your average everyman searching for his missing wife in a dumpy mansion in Louisiana owned by a murderous family known as the Bakers. You navigate through these halls solving puzzles, collecting resources, and fighting any dangers you cross with what weapons you find, including the crazy Bakers and sort of cat-and-mouse style encounters. It's a pretty straightforward experience that can be completed in a few hours if you're fast on your feet, or longer if you become easily paranoid and take time turning corners like me. Last, and possibly just as obvious as number 1, is The Evil Within 2. After years of speculation and waiting, it's finally here. No offense RE7, but third-person horror is more my style. This game is still new, and I finished it at the time of recording, so spoilers will be minimum. 3 years after the events of the first game, Sebastian Castellanos is a broken man in even worse shape. But when given the chance to save his thought-to-be-dead daughter Lily, he leaps headfirst into a similar scenario that put him through hell all those years ago. Building off the mechanics of the previous game, you'll navigate your way through unstable environments that may change when you least expect it, creating a sense of tension that will keep you on your toes. You'll also encounter various monstrosities you can either fight directly with weapons you find or kill with stealth, all with limited resources that can mean life or death. The game has expanded in size to move away from linearity, allowing for more exploration and freedom to pace the journey. One moment you could be exploring for useful items and encounter a few thrills, then unknowingly stumble into a dynamic scripted sequence that'll fill you with terror. So if you're looking for a horror experience that's the best of both worlds, then play this. It'll really darken up your Halloween. No wait, that's cheesy. And that's the list. Hopefully you, the audience, will enjoy one or all of these games this year. But since you've seen my list, what's yours? What would you recommend that's worth a try? Don't be afraid to post those thoughts in the comments. Also, maybe follow us on social media where we post updates on our stuff, and perhaps maybe even support us on Patreon where we post additional content. Happy Halloween, everyone. Take care.